It's obvious that smartphones and laptops have become a modern tool in the 21st century. Most used for communication, entertainment, and most notably work and school, it's hard not to feel left out or even at a disadvantage if you don't own one. Though the uses of these devices are myriad, they all share one feature: the camera. On many of the smartphones and laptops we use today, this front-facing camera is called the notch. This is the name for the cutout at the top of the screen for the camera. To put it simply, if the screen is how you watch the world, the notch is how the world watches back. Older phones have a wide enough bezel around the edge so the camera could hide inside at the top, but now as screens get bigger and devices get thinner, that camera has to go somewhere. Just recently, Apple's iPhone 13 only managed to make the notch 20% smaller, while some companies are opting for a hole punch cutout camera as the notch goes out of style, like the Samsung Galaxy S10. Some cutting-edge displays are reversing the notch to make their laptop bezels even thinner, giving them little foreheads. Tech giants like Apple, Google, Xiaomi, and Oppo are even trying to hide the camera behind the screen completely, and many folks want this. They see the notch as a problem. Many want an interrupted full screen experience. Give us pure screen. Give us pure tech. But if the screen is how you watch the world, and the notch is how the world watches back, we should want to remember that we are being watched. With the disappearance of the notch, we are becoming more willfully ignorant of digital influence and surveillance. Popular digital presence, the CEO of Facebook, Mark Zuckerberg, covers his computer camera. In June of 2016, he posted to Instagram with the computer in the background of the photo with the camera covered with tape. Covering your camera has long been a basic and cheap security safeguard to deter hackers gaining access to their information by using remote access, a process called ratting, according to the New York Times. Even the FBI's director at the time, James Comey, taped up his computer camera, mentioning, quote, "I put a piece of tape over the camera because I saw somebody smarter than I am had a piece of tape over theirs." Stephen Cobb, a senior security researcher at ESET, said in an email that, quote, "For people who are not CEOs, the threat is people scanning the internet for accessible webcams for a range of motives, from voyeurism to extortion. Getting rid of these bezels and notches would get rid of the option to cover the camera entirely." No, the possibility of you being watched from your computer while folding your laundry is low, but the threat of it being tapped into at all is not. Tech companies and consumers hope the camera will disappear within their screen someday, even though we know how potentially dangerous keeping them on and uncovered all the time may be. But if you can't see it, does it really exist? Out of sight, out of mind, right? The camera isn't always on, but the data collection is. Yes, we are being tracked. No, we don't want to be reminded of it. If digital surveillance isn't a concern, maybe the aesthetics of a phone screen are. Having the notch at the top of the phone or a thick bezel around a laptop screen for the camera is seen as an eyesore, a reminder that there is always a reason to upgrade and that nothing is ever finished changing or evolving. We want the camera gone so badly so that when we look at our screens we may finally see a perfect and unhindered screen and forget that it's technology at all. The day that the bezel disappears isn't just the day that the screen loses its edges, it's the day that we lose the boundaries of ourselves. People think that we are already losing ourselves to technology today. Canadian philosopher Marshall McLuhan realized this 30 years before the emergence of online search, social media, streaming videos, blog posts, and emails, that we shape our tools and our tools shape us. In other words, the person before technology is no longer the user afterwards. More increasingly, we want technology not to just do what we want, but to guess what we want, like Spotify generating playlists curated to our liking based on what we listen to. Some streaming services will play something if you ask, "Show me a show I like." The social media TikTok itself is a medium nearly purely based on an algorithmic recommendation system that generates a homepage for us. The more time that passes, the more we expect these machines to know what we want before we even know ourselves. If the dying command of Socrates was to know thyself, the modern equivalent of our day is let thine algorithms know thyself. We want this so badly that we freely give access to our data, which has left us vulnerable in ways that not even George Orwell saw coming. His book, 1984, is an illustration of what the world would be without the freedom to think. He often proclaimed that 1984 could happen if man did not become aware of the assaults on his personal freedom and did not defend his most precious right, that being the right to have his own thoughts. This is exactly what the technology we are using today is doing. British writer and lay theologian C.S. Lewis, who held academic positions in English literature at both Oxford University and Cambridge University, put it best. As time passes, it is less and less clear whether we are choosing things ourselves or whether the machines are choosing them for us. Lewis believed technology to be an instrument of power that was increasingly used as a tool of manipulation and control in the 20th century. The devices we use and their influence have become such an integral part of our lives and culture to the point that data collecting or hackers doesn't even scare us enough to deter our habits, so we'd rather ignore them entirely, instead by hiding cameras and blurring the lines between when reality starts and the screen stops.